Well, hello and welcome to Critical Weight Theory, a show where, in addition to doing movie and TV episode reviews and sometimes looking at politics, I also dig deep into the legends, sounds, and seismic shifts that shaped global music. I do all kinds of content here. So, I'm your host, Wade, and today we're rewinding all the way back to 1969 for a look at The Upsetter, the groundbreaking album by one of reggae's wildest visionaries, Lee Scratch Perry. And if you've heard of dub music, if you've ever vibed to a reggae bass line that seemed to bend time itself, then chances are you've already been feeling the influence of Lee Scratch Perry. But before his album Super Ape came out, and before he helped launch Bob Marley to global fame, Perry released an album that quietly but powerfully shifted the Jamaican music scene called The Upsetter. So let's break it all down here. Released in 1969, The Upsetter was sort of like a mission statement. Perry had just launched his own label, Upsetter Records. That name wasn't a coincidence. Perry saw himself as a musical provocateur, someone here to disrupt, rewire, and reinvent sound. And with The Upsetter, he started doing exactly that. He had a backing band, a house band called the Upsetters. So I'm sure you're noticing a trend here of him using the name Upsetter. It was a rotating crew of session musicians that Perry assembled to lay down the rhythms and vibes that he'd manipulate from behind the board. The sound, musically, the Upsetter lands right at the intersection of rocksteady and early reggae. It's a transitional sound, and Perry captures it like lightning in a bottle. Expect heavy bass lines, of course, as you might with reggae in general, but there were sharp, offbeat guitar skanks and rhythms that feel slightly bent but incredibly tight at the same time. Sort of like that loose but tight vibe that a lot of us like in, I guess, a wide variety of different genres. But it can work exceptionally well with reggae because you kind of expect things to be a little bit looser with this genre. You can already hear Perry treating the studio like an instrument, layering the effects, echo, and eerie atmosphere long before dub became a more defined genre. And I would suggest listening to Night Doctor from this album. On the surface, it's a catchy instrumental groove, but if you dig a little deeper, you hit something a little bit darker thematically. The title references a chilling piece of colonial history, tales of unethical doctors who preyed on black people for experiments, sometimes even exhuming the dead. Perry knew how to hide sharp commentary like that inside of smooth music. So I doubt those were just tales either. It sounds like something that was actually done, and it's it's a bit of an interesting nod to a serious topic in what is otherwise an instrumental track. Then there's Man from M15, another standout with that title. You might assume it plays like a spy movie soundtrack melted into Kingston Heat. However, it's more funky with only a slightly mysterious sounding guitar solo. But it's still unmistakably a Lee Scratch Perry track. And the context for this album is that in 1969, Jamaica's music was in flux. Rocksteady was sort of phasing out, and reggae was coming into its own. And Perry was one of the engineers driving that evolution. While the Upsetter isn't built around a unified theme, and some tracks could easily appear on his later release, Return of Django. The scattershot energy is part of its charm, you might say. It's Perry stretching out, experimenting, and setting the stage for something bigger. So the Upsetter didn't just launch a label, it helped launch a sound. This record marked the beginning of Perry's journey as a fully independent producer. It introduced his vibe, raw, eccentric, and always a step ahead to a broader audience. And for those tracking the roots of reggae and dub music, this is one of the key landmarks for sure. So if you're diving into the genre or exploring the works of Lee Scratch Perry, the Upsetter is obviously going to be essential listening, not just because it sounds good, but because it shows you where genius begins. So if you're going to find a starting point for this particular genre or subgenre, or maybe even just reggae in general, you could do worse than to start with this album. So that's it for this episode. I I think I've said enough about this album. Really, just go ahead and check it out. And don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, share, and leave a review if you're digging the vibes of this podcast, which not everyone does, but if you do enjoy it, go ahead and do all that stuff that I mentioned. So, if you want another reggae album review, you can go ahead and let me know, track me down on social media. If nothing else, I can add it to my list, even if I don't get around to reviewing it right away. I could definitely eventually get around to it. So until next time, keep your records spinning and your bass lines heavy.